right, I think we are good to go. Apologies for the delay there. Last minute testing for things. I spent a bunch of time this morning making sure everything was okay here. For the most part, I need to update the overlay image that I use for my face camera because it is very much not correct based on what my new theme now looks like. Wow, that is well wrong. I'm gonna have to fix that, or that's gonna bug me. Hello, everybody. OdatNurd here. Welcome to the live stream. It's been the first time in 3 weeks or so that we had one. Originally, way back when the first stream that was of the streak that was canceled was due to a big deadline at work. Something absolutely positively had to be done. So we were putting a little bit of extra time to make sure that the world wasn't going to collapse, and as a result, they was unable to do a stream. And then I actually have some new hardware now. Um, Replacement computer with more memory, faster hard drive, better video card. I got some more lighting now. Hopefully, we can see that here. I've been playing around with it a little bit to make this seem not quite the dank dungeon. Just double checking there. And I spent the better part of that time in my spare time trying to build up and replace the system, and we almost almost had it for in time for last week's stream, but there were some last minute issues, not the least of which is that the old computer was a rather tall normal sized tower and the new one is a micro tower. um, and all of the bunch of, well, not all of the cable, but a bunch of the cabling for that was not quite long enough to reach from where the PC needs to be under the desk up to the things. Also, one of the things I got here is a new monitor as well. Um, so, as a result of that, there wasn't quite, and I realized after the fact that even if that cable had worked, there were still some issues with OBS that would have stopped it from working. But we're back now. I have scheduled out the next run of live streams up to the end of August, I believe. I don't foresee, unless smoke starts billowing out from under the desk sometime soon, I don't foresee needing to miss another stream for a while. So we are ready to rock and roll. Now, I don't really have too many plans for what is going to happen in this stream. We'll see what's happening. If you're watching live, let me know. It has been very warm here, and we don't have air conditioning. And I am sitting in a room with a laptop right there, a laptop right there, a laptop right there, computer under the desk. So I am, right at heat central here, if you will. So I have a couple of fans going. I have one over there, one behind me. The reason why the stream started a few minutes late is because I realized of all the testing I did earlier to make sure that things were going to work with the new setup, one thing I did not test was will the fans be picked up by the headset? Because it's really a very warm and stagnant in here, and I'm not entirely sure how long I could manage it without the fans moving some of the air around. So, um, for that reason, this stream might not be as long as others for the time being. Just because this is the welcome back and don't really have any plans too much per se anyhow. But if you hear any, there I think is an occasional wind rumble if I turn my head just the right way. The fan to my left that's circulating the air around may give a little bit of a wind rustle. I can't really hear it myself. And there's also a fan right there in the background behind me. That's a bigger one. Just before the stream, I did some testing to make sure that they didn't seem like it was coming out. So hopefully all good. And also, what with this being a whole new everything, hopefully we see a little bit of quality increase here. The new video card that I have is a NVIDIA Quattro. I actually have hardware in, encryption. Well, I suppose hardware encoding of video now, whereas previously I had to use software. So CPU load is way down. We're averaging 1/10 of the CPU that we did before, which I think also boosts the quality up a little bit as well. And that also frees me up to be able to use a little bit more bandwidth as well. So hopefully all goes well. But with all of that out of the way, and all indications being that things are going well here with the new bitrate, I think we are ready to go ahead and transition on into the system here. So here we go. Hello, fellas, Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome to the live stream for July the 21st. It's been a little bit since we've had a live stream due to life getting in the way, various hardware issues, discovering that everything is properly configured, but all of the monitor cables and one audio cable are about this much too short. Life is great. But we are back now with a new PC, new video card, new monitor, even. It's a 4K monitor, though I'm currently running it at 1920 by 1080 because, it's easier for me to see things that way. We are ready to rock and roll. And I don't really have any definite plans for what to work on in this particular stream per se, because there's a lot of things that have been going on, and the fact that there hasn't been a live stream in 3 weeks ish. I think it was the last three that were missed. That's the last time I actually did any package development or plugin development, really. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think if I managed to have a few minutes in a forum to help somebody with a question. I might have written something small, but I don't think so. As a result, I wasn't quite sure where we should go with that. One of the things I do, however, is keep my user package in Git so I can sync it across to all of the systems. So I was sort of going through today, looking at all of the various plugins that I have from previous live streams that should probably be promoted to a package or into the scraps repository. There could be some other cleanup that has to happen there. Maybe we could do something along those lines. What we see in the window right now, though, is a plugin that Keith wrote for as we can see in the comment there from lines 20 to 26, it takes the text from the current selection or the whole buffer if there isn't anything selected, and shoots it through a program that you specify, captures the output, and dumps it into the buffer. And this is something that requires Python version 3.5 or more, which means this only works in the 4000 series, the Sublime Text 4, if you will, even though it's not going to have that name. And it has to exist either in your user package or in a package that has a Python version. And this is pretty neat for what it is currently. I say that like that's a bad thing, but really not. Like we did first, third, second, first, third. One of the things we could do is a little something like this and get some stuff going here. That uniques all of the lines, or we could do it with the other one to sort the lines and unique them, which works neat for this. Clearly, for the purposes of this particular example, less exciting than it could be because there are already items in the permute item here, which allows you to unique the lines. You probably have to select all of them for that to work. And then you could also sort them, I believe. So, I mean, this is something that you, in this particular example, you could already do in Sublime. But it's pretty handy to not have to do a thing like that. Let's see. What if we did something like cd home /.config /sublime text 3 packages user and ls. I could do something like this and pull the directory listing in. In my Vim years, you know, that 2 decades where this was that was the editor of choice. I spent a lot of time um, doing things like selecting text visually, sending it through a sort unique and such. So I find this quite interesting as a thing to be done. Um, so I thought I might fiddle with this a little, um, just to see how we. I have a couple of ideas for what I'd like to see in this. One of which is the ability to change the current working directory, because right now it's not doing that, I don't think. It's calling execute with standard in, which doesn't specifically set what the working directory is, which is why I did that example that way. So it might be nice if that was a thing that we did here. Whoops, pardon me. Part of the reason why the stream might not go as long is I only have so much water. Although I am drinking some tea here because, you know, old habits die hard. It's not super piping hot though. And another thing that I thought would be interesting would be to have it prompt you for the shell command to use in the input panel at the bottom of the window. Because if it did that, this monitor's bigger than the other one. If it did that, then you could also perhaps have some command history, kind of like doing it in the console here. So I thought that might be an interesting thing. Another thing that we could do with that is add it to the command palette with an input handler like the arithmetic command does with a text input handler. Issue with that is that there's no way to recall past history that way. So that it seems for that particular purpose that the way to go with something like this would be to instead have another command that is the pipe text wrapper command or something, and then execute pipe text command directly from it when you do something. So that seems like it might be the way to go. And I thought we might play around with that and see what we end up with. Yeah, close that one without saving. Loving this new darker menu in this build, which just goes to show if I did this, you could see what the window decorations actually look like now versus what the overlay that I use on my webcam and in the main face cam are. I probably need to fix that up a little bit. Let's say new plugin, and we probably call this one pipe text wrapper, I think. Semi-unfortunate that whenever a dialog opens in full screen or distraction mode, the taskbar comes back, but what can you do? So this would be a pipe text wrapper command. I think we'd also make this a window command as well, because there's not a lot of facility for something like that. So I have a couple of ideas for this. Maybe we test that out first to see if what we want to try to do will actually work. So we might say, let's do this. Go like so. Window show input panel, and let's see, the caption is shell command. Let's say the initial text is going to be just an empty. Oh, actually, let's do this. Last command is an empty string, let's say. So this could be self.last command. And then we need an on done, an on change, and an on cancel. So self.execute none, let's say. Okay, so we would say def execute and that is going to be called with the actual string itself, right? So command, we'll say shell command, like so. Print shell command and, oops, self.last command is equal to shell command. And if you happen to be watching the stream live and you have any questions about what I'm doing or just about Sublime Text in general, feel free to go ahead and shout them out in the comment section there. Don't worry about derailing anything. I self-derail on a fairly regular basis. I think that should be all we need. I will, however, user Linux set up the standard testing key binding of pipe text wrapper like so. We're going to leave that open because we're going to need it in a minute. So the shell command, we could say ls, and it's printing the thing there. And then if I hit it again, we end up with that. So that's nice. That's one thing we need to do. The next thing is panel equals. I'm going to do a little bit of this because I don't like that shooting off the edge of the window like that. And then we can say panel.settings.set pipe input. Just a random setting here that we're going to use because I have a plan. We're going to say this. Just going to use a view event listener for this one, I think. And we would say settings get, what would I call it? Pipe command input and false. The idea here being that when this is actually might be actually a little bit of a teachable moment here. Show input panel, as we can see, pops that panel up at the bottom of the window there. The first argument being what you're being prompted for. The next thing is the initial text, which is how we end up being able to have the last command be stashed here. The next one is what gets executed when the user presses enter. The next one would get invoked with the first none here on line 10. This one right here specifies the callback to be entered every time the text changes if you wanted to track what's happening in the buffer. And the last one is what gets called if the user cancels, which means that they press escape to close the panel without actually pressing enter. We don't care about those two. We do care about the one, which currently is just printing the shell command and saving it. And the other thing to note here is, hello, Ashwin. One of the things about window commands, and all commands really, is there's instantiated multiple times, except for application commands that are only instantiated a single time. And that means we can actually stash the last command right inside of this. And that means in this window, when I do this, we can see it being specified there. If we created a new window, in this window, it doesn't have such a memory. Spelled it wrong, but it does still remember that one. But back in the original window, it still remembers that one. So that's a fun little thing to do there. Since you're watching, Ashwin, please let me know how the volume levels are, because there's a whole new audio setup stuff here. Side note, when you set up a new computer and you sync across all of your settings and it's a Linux computer, might be a good idea to not sync across the Pulse Audio server settings from one machine to another, because it tends to remember all of the devices that it used to have connected to it. And man, does that make it unhappy. So some settings were lost there, but I think I actually got it working. Sounds okay to my ears, but I have new speakers and they're kind of quieter than the old ones. So I'm finding that a little bit confusing. The idea behind this is going to be that we want to have a setting applied to the input panel so that we can have an event listener to detect key presses with our own custom context. I don't even know if we necessarily need the setting. We'll see. That's just sort of how I envisioned it in my head. Um, the other thing to note here is that show input panel does open the panel at the bottom of the window, and it returns the actual view that represents the panel, which is why we're able to set the setting in here. And every time show input panel is called, the settings in that view are cleared. So you do have to set the setting every time, but that also makes sure that if another plugin in the same window invokes the input panel, you don't have to worry about your settings taking effect in somebody else's plugin. The prime use for something like this is using the password setting and setting it to true so that when you enter text into the input panel, you don't see any text, you just see the little circles in there. The next thing we're going to want here is an on-query context. And I can't remember if this is actually a view event listener thing or not, so let's see. Excellent. It is. It is a view event listener thing. That is what we like to see. Suspected that it was. I don't know that we necessarily require it for this to be a view event listener, but I do like to not have that sort of thing. Great. One of the other things that changed, by the way, is I have a whole new video card that actually does hardware encoding. So theoretically, the quality might be a little bit better in that regard, and that also allows me to bump the bit rate up as well, while keeping the CPU rate at a balmy average of 3% instead of the 35 that it used to be. So that is all win, and this monitor looks extra sharp, particularly since it's a 4K monitor that I'm running at a lower resolution for streaming. Self-key operator, operand, and match all. And we're going to say if key is not equal to pipe text input. I don't know if that's technically required. Yeah, for this purpose, it is. It is required. Return none. Oh, sorry. Let's do it the other way. If it's equal to that, then we'll do something in here. Otherwise, we'll return none out here. Also, this is the first actual plugin development I've done in almost a month, which is exciting. It's neat to be doing something that doesn't involve installing software, wondering how projects exist written in C and C++ where you compile them and they don't work and it doesn't seem like it could ever work. Excellent. I think that might be, Ashwin mentioned that the monitor looks sharper and clearer to read. I think that's a side benefit of a little bit of a higher bit rate and hardware encoding. I think it doesn't have to take extra passes through what might have been an outdated library. Yeah. So one of the things I needed to compile was the synthesizer that I use for playing the piano plugin. And although I managed to build it from source last time, this time it wouldn't build for reasons as far as I can see because the code is actually broken. But I seem to be the only one having a problem. I'm not entirely sure what the deal was with that. So I've actually done more C and C++ programming in the last couple of weeks than anything else, which is kind of weird for me. That used to be the status quo. I spent like 2 decades writing C code primarily and Python on the side, and it kind of swapped that around the other way. If operator equals, oh, actually, we usually do this in a different way, don't we? Let's do it the way I normally do. No, I guess we do want to say that. P equals pipe text and operator equals sublime.op. Equal, oh, shoot. No, I don't want to do it that way. Pardon me. If operator is equal to sublime.op equal. Ooh, no, that's not how I normally do this. Man, I'm telling you, I am out of practice here. The left-hand side It's going to be true in this particular case. I'm going to say, yeah. If the left-hand side's always going to be true and the right-hand side's going to be the operand, then I guess we could actually sort of tweak this up a little bit, couldn't we? We could say return return true if else false. No. Man, I am having a real brain fart moment, and it doesn't help that it's like 30 degrees in here. The ultimate goal was we want to actually know when this is happening. You know what? Let's just go ahead and whoops. Do this, because I'm pretty sure I have one of those in here. Oh, I don't. Where did I put it? No, wait, I have to have one of those in here. It's not in that, it's in the core. This is extra embarrassing. And I can't type. Ah. That's the one I was looking. No, that's the one I opened last time, isn't it? Crap. That's the one. Wait, are these both the same? That can't be right. It's a good thing I didn't use HyperHelp as the package to work on here, because I clearly have forgotten how it works. Yeah. Yep. I got one in here. No, I do not. All right. Go figure. Oh, let's have some water here. Oh. If you didn't see the initial part of this, what we're doing here is working on a kind of wrapper extension to a plugin that key throat that's in the Sublime Scraps repository that allows you to take arbitrary selected text, shoot it through a shell command, and replace the selection. Return none if the operator doesn't match what you want. Yeah, that's probably right. I think I'm stuck in the idea of trying to write it super clever the first time, which is totally against how this normally works. We only want to do something if the operator is there, the key is the one that we're actually interested in here. This is something to test because I may be, overthinking this. Key is pipe text input, and we don't even need any of the other parts because the default is going to be something. Now I think that is entirely not the binding that I should be doing this on. Pardon me. I forgot what I was going to do there. We need just a regular thing here. But this should be echo. And then then that. Whoops. What the hell did I do? Oh no. Oh, that's unfortunate. I think my key bindings might be a little bit messed up. Yeah, that's what I thought. I only wanted to revert that part there, bub. Fine. We'll do it that way. Thank you. God. I was kind of having issues with that earlier. Unable to find, scroll down. What? Oh, right, because it's not actually having an effect there. But if I did this, no, huh? All right, I thought that I might have been able to extend my my thing there. If this is an event listener that only applies in a view of a particular type, then in theory, this query context would only apply to views that have that set, right? So this is probably something that doesn't actually need to be an event listener of this type. So let's just go ahead and just use a regular event listener for this. That was probably not technically something that was needed. Or did I have another idea for that? I don't think I did. I don't think I did, but I do need to have a setting in there to be able to test it. So I think that's probably where I was going a little funky. Then we can say the left-hand side is equal to, oh shoot. No, I did have a reason for that. I remember now. Pipe command input with the default of false, and then the right-hand side is equal to bool of operand, and then return LHS equals RHS if operator equal to sublime.op equal else. Something like that might have been the intent for something like this. And oh, shoot. Oh, what did I do wrong there? Key operator. Key operator operand match all. Key operator operand match all. Well, that really seems like something that should work. Huh. Did that change? That is an intriguing question. I didn't catch if that did, unless this code is just stupidly wrong. Oh, right. I forgot. I changed that. Here, let me do this, because that's going to go horribly awry if I don't. Phew. Okay. So in this buffer, for example, we see in the status bar that says unable to find, because that's the key binding that associates with the quick find next. Still no. That doesn't trigger at all. Interesting. Which makes sense because it should really only trigger. Oh, yeah. It should really only trigger in the input panel, I guess. But even then, it does not. All right. Well, we'll back to the other thing. Hello, sir. Divyanch. Not a name I can probably pronounce correctly, so I apologize for butchering that. Welcome to the stream. We're currently pointing out how I'm a little rusty on stuff because I haven't done things for a little while here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to swap this for the other kind of event listener. Yeah, it takes a view. Right. view key operand match all. I think that's probably just a better way to go. And I'm going to quit and restart to make sure things shoot out. Ooh, nailed it. I don't get to say that very often. Okay, now it says it's checking, and then that binding doesn't trigger. Nice. And here it says it's checking. Ooh, boo. It should be executing exec or echo if it works. So in here, there we go. That's the business that we're looking for. All right. Took a stupidly long amount of time, but we got there in the end. Oops. So we want up and, oh, actually, yeah. We want down as well for something like this. So the idea, you don't need to do anything like that. We're going to need some extra commands for this. But if we had the panel open, I can push up 5 times and we get 5 of those. And if we had the panel open, I push down, we get a few more. So we're basically detecting up and down arrow key presses, but inside of the input panel, but only when the input panel is the pipe text wrapper input panel where we're asking for a shell command. I'm gonna tighten that up a little bit. Whoops. I'm gonna wish one of the things that's been on my to-do list for a while is to add extra key bindings because I'm very much used to using the keypad, numeric keypad arrow keys to move around. And in the new versions of Sublime in the 4000 builds, those are bound to number keys because the or some of them are anyway, when you use certain things like shift left and right. It's actually bound to keypad left and right, but now it's doing something different than it was before. So I really need to tweak that up a little bit so that my arrow keys and ends and homes work as we expect. So what we're trying to do here, and I think what we want is a history of commands. And there's actually an implementation of something similar to this in the paste from history plugin. See here, this is a class. This is responsible for the ability for paste from history to remember stuff you've copied. And then if you trigger that binding, you can get at the one thing there. If I copied the one, there's that one there. I have an override on mine. As we can see here, it normally displays in a menu, but I like the quick panel approach. But this paste from history command uses that global history object there. And this is what we want to do so that this wrapper can remember commands that we've executed. So we probably want to do something similar to that in this, because that works there, it should work for us, right? Let's say pipe command history is the class. We'll say 50 different commands are the numbers of things that we need here. Now, how much of this is actually needed in this thing is the important thing here. Do you actually need an init? I found, Ashwin just mentioned that genuinely speaking, he hardly uses the keypad keys. I'm pretty sure that this is 100% of the fact that I'm a million years old, and the very first PCs that I was using was, I think I might have mentioned this before, an honest to God IBM 8088 desktop computer, the kind you can see images of that were big, giant, wide, sideways towers with full height 5.25-inch dual floppy drives. The keyboard was enormous and made of steel, and it didn't back then. Keyboards didn't have those kind of arrow keys, or if they did, they weren't in that necessarily that position. But the numeric keypad was uh, a more handy place for stuff like that. I I think the arrow keys might have been in a different place. It's been so long. But I spent so many years working on that style of keyboard and using the numeric keypad. In particular, the fact that on new keyboards, the up, down, left, right are sort of in that inverted T shape. But I'm really used to the idea of holding these fingers on left and right and moving my finger up and down more than you have to hit these keys. Um, like for example, when I used to play Quake online, my crouch key was the 5 on the numeric keypad because I used that to move my guy around while I was playing, and then I could use that key to crouch down. Although now I'm so used to using the WASD keys for stuff like that. Uh, really showing the old age there. I'm gonna, yeah. So this new change is probably like great for a lot of people. Keyboards are going to work better than they did before, but it took me like 3 or 4 days after the new build dropped before I realized why I thought I was going mildly insane, that, because I was doing things that I would normally have done, but I wasn't getting the correct result. I thought that I had damaged my brain in some way and I was pushing the wrong keys. Yeah. Old habits die real hard. For example, drinking tea on a warm day. Um, we'll steal this whole thing pretty hardcore, I think. Mm-mm-mm. You don't need to be nearly as clever about it as that is being, though. I don't know that we necessarily. Hmm, that's actually pretty clever. Del duplicate text and then insert. So if you execute the same command, yeah. We're gonna totally steal this clipboard history code here, which has actually gone through a few iterations in the time that I've had this override. Uh, I even was responsible for reporting some bugs, although they weren't official bug tracker bugs in that particular case. Just happened to be talking to Ben in the Discord and pointed out that some stuff was not quite working the way that it one thought it might. So let's say, and then and then we just need some del duplicate. Did I spell that right? No. That one is spelled correctly, though. S for sn self dot storage if s1 is, seems like it should work. I am not using a pop-up menu. No, that's why I have a little bit of an override on here to display. Actually, I have two. The main part of the override is replacing this, the show pop-up menu, with the show quick panel for the items instead. But then as a result of that, this part is also modified or added in there, I should say, I guess, to give you the ability to see more lines of context than just the one, which is the reason why I wanted to put this in a quick panel to begin with. Plus, menus, they're not as cool as they could be. And we need a get, right? Doop. How does this used from the command? we push it in. Does it ever actually need to be checked to see if it's empty? I can't imagine that it does. I can't imagine that it does at all. Oh, it used to be. I see. It used to be a thing that was called, but now it's not. Perhaps. Or I'm just insane. I gotta turn that off. I'm gonna do myself an injury. That one too. What was I actually doing here? That is totally not the yeah, okay. So we need the history to pull them from there. So we're gonna need to do a little bit of more work on this, but I guess we are totally gonna need the list of things, right? So a little something like that, and I guess it's enabling and disabling itself. Yeah, we don't care about that per se. We just need something like so, and something like yeah. I'll just go ahead and copy that out. That's in the right, yeah. Filter the list. I just love those inline diffs. And John didn't expose the functionality to be used via an API. Yeah, indeed. I think a lot of people were super excited when that popped out because they thought that phantoms were going to have interactivity in them in a way that they don't. But no, not entirely sure. I can't remember if there was ever any reason expressed for why they decided to do that. I don't think so. I think people asked for it. So that should give us that little bit of action. So the one thing we want to pull here is we want to save the last shell command so that we can pop it again by default, perhaps. But we also, is this just creating a single global one? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay. Oh. You actually do it that way? No, I don't do it that way. I do it pipe command history is equal to pipe command. Whoops. I prefer to do things that way instead with the implicit underscore of it doesn't automatically get imported. And let's throw some of these things in because it kind of bugs me when those aren't in there. And we'll leave 2 there. Here's is our little command. 1, 2, boop. And the event listener so that we know if our arrow keys are allowed to do something. So now we can say pipe command history dot push. Did we actually call it push? We did. And push shell command like so, and then actually stash it. Now, one of the things this is doing is when you paste from history, it pushes the same text back to put that command back to the top of the history. So if that was the case, let's just test if we didn't have this in here and we said last command is equal to pipe command history dot get. Oh, shoot. That would blow up, wouldn't it? If that list was actually empty. Is there an array access in Python the same way as there's a get in a dictionary so that you can just get like a sentinel like none? I guess the easy way to do something like this is, the thing that was there. Return the length of self.storage equals 0. So that we can say get 0 if pipe command history. Oh, sorry. I meant to say else that is what I meant to put in there. So the theory would be the first time you do it, you get nothing. And then the next time you do it, you get the last item. Oh, we also need to do that because when the command pops in, you want the text to be selected so that if that's not the command you want to execute, you can just type and clobber it out. Okay, so unfortunately here now we kind of need to track a little bit of something here. What's a good way to pull this off? Now we're going to need a command that's not echo to we probably want a class pipe text history command, which is going to be a text command. No, thank you. Whoops. And we're going to say prev equals false, let's say. If we make this a text command, then I think we can just fiddle around with the contents of the view directly and save ourselves a hassle. So this and that are going to be pipe text history. And this one is going to need args. Whoops. Argument is going to be prev up. Previous is actually true, isn't it? True to go up, false to go down. Oops. Seems like the way to go for that. If I added commas on all of these things. If I ever mentioned that the best way to make sure that your code is broken is to actually copy and paste it somewhere before you verify that it does anything vaguely correct. So that's going to execute this in here. So what we could say is, let's work through what we actually want to do here. Current command is going to be self.view.subster of a Sublime region that spans the length of the view. Then we need the command index to be the index of that particular item in the history. So that would be pipe command history.get to get the list. And what do you use for that? Is it find? I can never remember. No, that's not what it is. Oops. Oh, is it just actually index? Python get index of item in list. It's actually index, isn't it? Oh wait, because there's a couple of ways to do this, because one of them triggers an exception and one of them doesn't, right? Return the zero-based index, the optional argument start and end, right? So you don't want to pull that one. Throws an error. Oh, right. The general way to do that is to, man, okay, well, that's a irritation. It's actually oops. Shoot, what did I? Oh, right. I had too many tabs open there. So we're going to pull, am I using single quotes today? Only sometimes. Oh man, that is irritating as hell. Okay. Oh, TypeScript really screwed with my head, man. And do nothing. The command that you're trying to do isn't in the history. There's no way to go up or down, is there? Just thinking, how do we actually want this to work? You want to push the up and down arrow to replace the current command. I guess you don't necessarily want to match it against the current command, do you? Maybe you want to push the current partial command into the history. That fiddles with the size of the list. I guess what we actually want to do here, we need to track state of the view, and let's say we have like the history index that is currently displayed, which is going to be 0 where possible. So while we're remembering, return pipe command history dot empty is false. So the command is only enabled if the history is not empty. If history is empty, then you don't need to navigate. So if we assume that when you open the arrow is in the list, and then up and down could get the next or previous one, and that index is reset to 0 every time the panel opens, and the current item is always brought to the top of the history, that's probably what we want. So let's say something like that is going to be equal to 0. So this only triggers if the history is not empty. We don't care about the current command at all. We don't care about any of that stuff at all, really. What we need is current index is equal to self.view.settings.get pipe command index. Actually, we don't even need to set that particular setting. We can just do that. But that's a nice way to pull that off. And then let's print this and verify that that actually seems to work. So I'm pushing up, I'm pushing down. I'm assuming nothing. Oh, I guess we actually need to. It's printing nothing inside of there. If we gave it command, now push the key, we see it printing stuff. So perfect is what we want there. So we say current index equals current index minus 1 if rev else. Is this going to do what we want? Current index. Oh, wait. Is that a thing in Python? I can never remember. Let's see. Oh, right. Sorry. Cool. Not actually modifying the index in the thing, so we got that going on. But that actually is a thing. So index is plus equal to 1 if minus 1 if prev else 1. And then print that particular index. So we run the command, put some stuff in here. If I push up, I get minus 1. And if I push down, I get 1. Which is nice. And then we probably want to say self.view.settings.set pipe command index with current index, like so. So that, and remember, every time we save the plugin, the file gets reloaded, the command class gets recreated, and as a result, the history thing also gets recreated, which is why we have to remember to type something into the history every time. But if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, oh, we don't see anything happen in there now. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I took out the print. Derp. Smart party. So 5 ups gets us minus 5, and 5 downs gets us back to 5. Nice. So we're totally modifying the index in a manner that we would like. The next thing to do is constrain this to the size of the actual history. We might actually want to swap this. So we'd say, whoops, I did that in the, the length of the pipe history.get is actually greater than 1. It's probably the better way to go because you don't want the history to do anything if there's only one item in it, right? Yeah, that makes sense. We need to constrain the index to if current index is, actually we need to we probably want to say pipe command history.get because we're probably going to need that at least a couple of times. Is less than 0. Oh, actually we could do it this way, couldn't we? We can say current index is equal to len history minus 1 if current. No, we don't want to do it that way. I don't think. Let's try it this way first. It's less than 0, then current index is equal to the length of the history minus 1. And then what's the integer modulo in Python? Is it the percent? We probably want something like that. Kinda. No, I don't have that there, do I? Crap. Let's do this. Plugins. meta for using Vim inside of VI, or Vim inside of Sublime. Though all things being equal, a bit of a taller window is probably where it's at. Did I do this in a clever way here? Ah, yeah, I guess. Maybe that would have worked. I'll copy that line out anyway. I was more lucid when I wrote this code. Oh, shoot. Hang on. This isn't the terminal. I actually have to copy that. So let's go ahead and throw that into there. So that may actually be the business. So then, oops, print current index again. So we would need first and, okay, now I did that. This should actually do nothing because it needs to be, oops, it needs to be 2 in the history. So now when I do it, if I go up, I go 0, 1, 0, 1. If I go down, 0, 1, 0, 1. And if we did a third, then up a bunch of times goes 0, 1, 2, and down a bunch of times goes 0, 1, 2. Sweet. Didn't trust that that was actually going to do what I thought it was going to do. Let's tighten that up a little bit. I think that would probably look a little bit nicer, right? Even better if that thing wasn't so long. And then we up a bunch of times and, uh-oh. A little better that way, perhaps. Maybe I need to add some extra brackets on that. Whoops. No, I think I broke it in the other direction now, huh? All right, then. Fine. Whoops. A little bit of that, perhaps, is what we want. I got to stop assuming that that panel is staying open when I do it. I tell you. I should actually probably just set that up with 3 things. Up works, down works. Good enough. I like the cleanliness of that a little bit better. Go and actually set that, and then self.view replace. I think it goes edit text region. If I had to guess. Let's see. Let's also do this. Save myself the hassle. Should have did that before. Ooh. I guessed incorrectly on the order, did I? All right. Region, then string. I'm going to guess based on that. Yeah. That figures. That's easy enough to fix, though. It seems like it does some stuff. Now, probably would be nice if the input panel also provides a tiny drop down on the right with the key binding to open it. You mean the input panel in general? Because the only way to open it is via plugin code. Could put a custom menu in this thing. That might be something fun to play with. I'm not entirely sure what you meant by that one, but is this enough for... Oh. No. We also need to pull in one of these too. To swap the selection. So even if you did that, it would... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, did I... Whoops. My bad. So even if you did sort, then... Yeah, now one of the things that systems like this sometimes do is commit the current partial command to the history so that you can recall it if you decide that you want to go back to what you were doing. Should we do something like that here? Because one issue with that is, I guess what we would actually have to do, let's give that a try. The console input has a small drop down on the right. Oh, that thing. I see what you're saying. I was thinking of the input panel. Yeah, there's actually an open issue that I created because there's a lot of things like these don't have keys bound to them either. And there's also not a way to open the panel switcher menu without using the mouse. And it seems to me there should be bindings for those. There's an issue that I created that posited the theory that there's already a context menu command that is used to actually open the context menu. So in a pinch, that command could take an argument for what context menu did you mean to open in a view or the tab bar or other areas, and then it could default to be the view so that backwards compatibly it would still work. That doesn't seem to have gotten a hit in the current dev build. But I think it got some traction because there are a lot of people that want to do nothing but keys. This looks weird to me somehow. Is this how this used to work? I could swear that previously these views would actually bump up and down to make sure that you see that whole thing. Let's just real quickly I guess I would do more crap in there, wouldn't I? No, huh? All right, I guess I'm just insane. Maybe I'm thinking of the build panel. Wouldn't be the first time I didn't know what I was talking about. Whoops. Go back there. We're going to capture the current command, swap that out, and then push in the current command after we're done. So the idea is we could say sort or unique or, oh, you know what? I thought there was something in the history that I was interested in. Now I want to come back to what I had before, um, even though I haven't actually committed it yet. Not bad. Um, you could really pollute your history with that, though, so that might be an issue. You could keep track of partials, and then you could have a call to remove them afterwards. That seems like it would be fun. What the heck? It's not like we're doing anything too groundbreaking here. Getting back into the steam of things. I think the next, I mentioned at the beginning of the stream that I have streams uh, all the way out to the end of August scheduled, and unless one of this some piece of the new hardware or something else explodes, we're not skipping out on any. And yeah, I have Sublime 2. I've never actually really used it for anything because Sublime 3 existed when I jumped in, but you would be amazed at the number of questions on Stack Overflow that pop up that mention Sublime Text 2, or at least used to back in 20. Actually, if you remember or Google it up, there was a period on Stack Overflow where they had this documentation. I think that's what they called it, a documentation beta that they were running, where they were trying to do the same way that Stack Overflow proper does question and answer, that they were going to have a documentation thing where users could submit their own documentation. I guess, well, I was calling it documentation, but like documentation help, common questions, with the idea being to come up with sort of community garnered de facto set of common questions, problems, solutions for specific software. And that was right around the time that I really wanted to get into. I had been doing a lot of help with people on the forum at that point, and I thought it would be awesome to be able to contribute stuff to that and help the community that way. But there was a minimum of like 200 reputation or something like that that you needed to have in order to be able to participate in that particular system. And I didn't have that much. At that time, the only question I'd ever answered on Stack Overflow was something about libgdx. It's a game programming library. Somebody asked a question and I answered it, and it was a very well liked question, but not well liked enough to get me that much cred. So I started answering Stack Overflow questions to try to boost my rep so that I could participate in that documentation thing. And then by the time I got to that point, Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange, I guess the people running it decided they didn't really like that particular thing, so they ditched the whole thing. But I just sort of kept answering questions, and that's you can actually see on my profile my reputation graph goes straight and then it goes straight up because it went from nothing to something. Right around that time, there were a lot of questions about Sublime Text 2. It kind of tapered a little bit when the first official versions of Sublime 3 came out, but there are some people in there that were persistent even for a while, but that sort of died down now that it's hopefully well known that Sublime 2 is well out of life. They're not going to build any more builds for it, so it might not even work on newer versions of macOS because Sublime 2, unlike Sublime 3, at least on macOS, required the Python environment that ships with the operating system in order to operate. And that was a very specific version of Python 2. So if you're running a newer version of Mac OS, you could very well be screwed in that regard. And also, its cryptography libraries don't support TLS2, which means that package control can't talk to its web host anymore because GitHub doesn't allow older TLS connections. So Sublime Text 2 is well and truly dead. But as a matter of fact, I did test just earlier that starting this would still work. And see various things I must have been fiddling with way back in the day. Weird stuff. Various people are kind of unhappy that this graying of the inactive paint is something that went away when Sublime 3 came around. What were we gonna do there? We were gonna say. That's actually swapping the history of this command. So if we actually the pipe text wrapper on done doesn't need to print shell command. It needs to say, remove that. We don't need that anymore. Indeed, there are actually people that are still using Windows 7 right now. I think Keith is one of those people that was very resistant to Windows 10, so he was sticking on that older version for as long as possible. My mom still has a machine that runs Windows XP. Or she did until it exploded. She might have replaced that now because every time she asked me a question and I refused to help her because I don't remember how XP worked, I think she might have jumped off of that particular item there. Pipe text is a text command, but that's okay. I would imagine that's okay. I think that's the only argument we need for this. Command or shell command, one or the other. So I think, let's open a tab. If the command was ls, nice. There you go. See, Windows 7, you're using Windows 7 as well. To be honest, I have a Dell laptop here that the company gave me when I started working on this this web thing that I'm not super fond of because I don't like doing front end development. I'm more of a back end server kind of guy. They only gave me this because I needed to run software on it for that and another tiny project I had to do before I got kicked into that. And there was no way for it to run on Windows 7. And that's the system that I still had, a little mini tower. I don't think you can see it here. It's way back in the distance. It's a little tiny mini tower with no hard drive in it because I needed to swap it into the machine that I just replaced in order to get things working. But I would probably still be using that if they hadn't done this. Me and my coworker, I think, were like the only two people in the company that didn't get upgraded as a matter of course because we work remotely from everybody else, and we tend to be forgotten. So for our purposes of what we wanted to do here, we have this doing what we want. I mean, clearly we probably don't want that, if I had to guess. But we could say this and say sort piped and replaced. Does anybody remember how to sort reverse? -R. Boo. Dictionary order. Numeric sort reverse. All right. Cool. So we could do this and say sort -R. Swap that the other way. Now we have a sort and a sort -R, so we can go back and forth. That is pretty much what I envisioned out of this thing. We could also do a little bit of this to see what directory was actually in there. Now, unfortunately, you got to do something like that in order to get that to work because this command executes the command with all of the selected text or the buffer as a whole. So the current working directory is currently that. I wonder. Similarly, Oops. Replace that with nothing, and then run that command again. Will that do what we expect? No. Makes sense. It would be nice if potentially the working directory was set relative to the current command, but I don't know how smart that is in general. So ostensibly, the plan that I had was actually this, and that actually worked out. I mean, we had a few stumbling blocks there as I forgot how things worked. But what if our history here, I'm just thinking of what's the most elegant way to do this? Because what we have here is if you, whoops, work through the history and did something like that and then thought, no, wait, I want this one instead. That one would be back in the history there because we stashed it. What if you canceled out of the panel, it knew that it should remove the temporary history item, well, like so. So that a temporary item like that would remain in the panel in the input history until you commit to a command. So if you started typing a command and then needed to go up and gather something from an existing command, you could go back to the partial one that you had. But if you decided you just wanted to use a different one, then that partial one wouldn't clog up the history, which is potentially ridiculously huge at this particular point. The ways to do that would be to have this pipe hit command history class keep track of text you inserted that was temporary. And in that case, there could be a remove temporary thing where it can just do the same thing as the delete duplicates thing there. Temp equals false, let's say. We do something like this, and then the unfortunate side effect of this is it could lose you part of your history. If there were 50 items in it and you pushed a temporary one and then we remove it later, there'd be 49 things in the history instead of 50. Is that necessarily an issue if you have 50 commands in your history? I'm going to say no. And append text like so. And let's see. Whoops, def purge, let's say. And something like so for this purpose. So in the history command, we would push this and say temp equals true. Still loads nicely. Let's get rid of that. And now in the show input panel, which we have to back up for. Whoops. The third one is on cancel. You may also potentially want to sanitize any input if a user enters a destructive command. Perhaps, but what would be that's one of those things that could be very open-ended. That might not be an NP complete potential thing. Like what would you put in there? Like RM minus RF. If it's a thing that you're entering yourself, this is sort of one of those situations where, yeah, I'm not sure that's actually a thing. That might be one of the one of the problems that's not in the NP set. Because it strikes me it's the same as, for example, the programming language Lua is a programming language that is compiled to bytecode in memory and executes just like Python and a lot of other languages, JavaScript and the like. For a while, the authors of it had some heuristic code in there to detect people doing bad things with with Lua code that could have detrimental effects on things, because Lua is a language that's meant to be embedded in an application as a scripting language. You can also use it standalone because the source distribution, as an example of how you embed it, includes an interpreter, but it's meant for embedding in things. And so you might want, to make sure that whatever code you're executing isn't going to do something terrible, like if you gave someone the ability to write a plugin and then they installed something that maliciously had a while one loop in it that stopped it from ever terminating. And they had a bunch of iterations on it, and eventually they dropped it when they realized that there's just no way for them to detect when there's something in there that is going to cause a problem. Because even if you did say, pardon me, some certain thing wasn't technically a good thing, that's not to say that somebody that knows what they're doing might not actually want to do something like that. So yeah, but there could be some stuff in there. In situations like this where it's you that has to enter commands in, I kind of err on the side of giving someone enough rope to hang themselves, but then you know leave it up to them. That that's just sort of me. This is one of those reasons why I'm kind of more of a back end guy kind of thing, and less the user interface protecting people kind of dude. Some pipe command history dot purge, I think, is what we want there. So I could type, oh, we need a tab. I could type ls, and then I could type ls minus alf. There's two different LS's in here. My thought actually went to not entering JavaScript in an input. You mean like, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that either. This is a command that's being executed by the shell. Actually, something that could potentially be a problem is if you invoke something that takes a long time to run. Although I think this does happen in the background. I'm not sure. Or maybe not. Commands could take a while to execute. So yeah, might not be a bad idea to do some stuff. There was actually some things in here that Keith actually wanted to modify, but we're doing something different first. So we have two commands in the history right now, and I could type pwd and then say, no, wait a minute, I want one of those. Uh-oh. Oh, is my cancel being invoked here? Oh. Oh, my code's broken. Oh, no problem. No problem at all. Didn't notice that. Yeeps. All right. So ls alf, and sort unique, and then I go, wait a minute, I want one of those. Still broken? Criminy. Oh. This is not my day. Okay. Now, give that one the focus. LS. A couple of different things we can do in here. That one appears in the list twice now. That's kind of unfortunate. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Yeah, okay, that's an issue. Maybe that's not a great idea. Because there's no way to tell if it was a command that was already in the history. That makes it more complicated. Because it's always pushing the current item to the top of the history, cycling it away, which is also inherently destroying some stuff. So let's go ahead and back those changes out. Let's say we're actually not interested in pulling that off. We don't want that. We don't want that. We're just sort of happy with the status quo of what we got. It's probably where that's at. Eh? Don't wreck the file. Don't wreck. Oh, cool. So I think that's actually the plan for what I wanted to do. I did actually ponder doing this as an input handler, and then you could have the history be a list and actually see them. Issue with that though is um, list input handlers absolutely require you to choose one of the items from the list. So you wouldn't be able to type your own command or pick something from the history. And having the command history is really something that I wanted to have in there. So in that regard, to keep a track of those. Let's watch it. Can you get hold of the input widget of an input handler just like input panel? I don't think so, no. Well, at least in this particular case, whoops, where is it? Oh, right. The show input panel item there, which is, yeah, right there. I keep scrolling around it. It implicitly returns the view. I think technically you could probably grab the view if you had a text command that was associated with a view and you knew that you were going to like press a key while that thing was active. Like you can paste text in there. Actually, now that I say that, view dot no. I can't remember what the heck that new method's name is. Let's do this. There it is. Console input, go to anything input, command palette input. Wonder if that counts. Only one way to find out. We have to scroll up a little bit. Element equals what did I just say that was? len self.view. We had a command that did that, and then we had this key binding here, which let's say we actually copied that and did that, and then just made this to be example. That's not going to do anything. Apparently, yes. Intriguing. What did I? Oh, I see. I see what I did there. What? Oh, maybe that's not what I did there. Oh, I had it in the wrong spot. I see. Well, that's a game changer. I completely forgot that view element thing actually existed. Huh. Well, how might we pull something like that off? The up and downs could still work the same way using that. I guess the issue there is knowing what command is currently active, because we wouldn't want this to be active in this particular command, for example. We'd only want it to be active in our command. Which I guess would require tracking some state in the window, which might be tricky, because how would you do something like that? You'd need to know that your input handler was active on the top of the stack to know that the key context should respond appropriately, which would work. But how do you detect when the input handler is closed? Is there a... There's a cancel on that, isn't there? Called when the input handler is canceled. So technically, this might actually be a possible thing. That is an intriguing little bit of action. So I guess what you'd still want the history to track this stuff. You'd still want the event listener, but instead of using view settings get pipe command input, you would do this. And also, when you execute the command, you'd have to have your input handler, and the input handler would have to set a global flag and then reset it when it was canceled or when it was accepted, confirmed, if you will. Let us do a little bit of this. I'm going to keep a copy of this particular one so that we can get back to it, because I don't want to commit this one just yet. So we still definitely want to have that. We're going to want to have a class. What would we call this? Shell command input handler, which is a Sublime plugin dot text input handler. And we want to have a def cancel. We want to have a def confirm. returns calls when it's accepted. Right. Like so. We require this to have an argument of shell command, like so. Then we need to say def input self args if shell command not in args return shell command input handler, like so. The thing up here would need an init, I think, because we need an initial text here, an initial text method. So we would say self.initial is something. And then we can say def initial text return self.initial. Actually, I guess we don't need that in there, do we? We could do that here. We could just return this. Whoops. The initial text is an empty string if the history is empty, otherwise that. I always write next input in the command and confuse. That would be confusing. I'm doing this 100% from memory, so we'll see how well this all works in the end. So we don't necessarily need this because that's the line up there. We're not showing the input handler. We don't need to do any of that. The initial text will automatically be the thing we want. We're going to say we don't need the command index to be set here either, because of the magic of the thing we're going to be doing in a second. So the execute is actually what we want this to do. So we move that up there. So the command actually gets executed. That's good. That purge call was something we didn't actually want in there. We don't need that anymore. So that makes that a little nicer. We need to now say this. There needs to be a ooh. Does an input handler, here's something to test in our little plugin. Does the input handler input have a window associated with it? Yes, it does. Great, okay. Just to verify, if we had another window, that's a different window. Cool, so that is a proper thing in that case. Because there could be more than one instance of this thing running, we want to make sure we're not doing anything dumb. We don't want it in init. We want it in, where do we want it? I think we want it in initial text. Would say, oh wait, there's no actual, all right. Sublime.active window.settings.set shell input true. And actually, we wouldn't do that, would we? We would say erase. Thusly, and the idea here is when this actually gets popped up, we track that in the settings for the window that the command palette is running inside of. that the shell input is active. We remove that setting, effectively making it false later, so that this jiggy down here, view dot window dot settings. That. Whoops. All right, I guess maybe we should just name it that then, huh? Since I just screwed that up. Let's replace all of them, shall we? So the sequence of commands is you execute the pipe text wrapper command. It doesn't have the argument. It gets here. It says it needs an input handler. It does create a new one. I guess we could do that in the init in this particular case. Super dot init. And that for the active window, because input handlers don't have access to the view. I mean, unless there's actually an item in there. So the input handler becomes active. It sets a setting in the window. When you confirm the text or cancel the text, it erases the setting so that the thing knows not to go, and that does that. You should actually have your vids and streams posted on the Sublime Reddit so that a larger audience can come to know. You know, I used to post videos on the Reddit, not live streams, but in the just regular videos. And the first couple of them, I got a good response, and then after that, I kept getting voted down into oblivion. But I guess there's probably a Reddit for live streams, isn't there? One other thing I was actually tempted with was going to Twitch instead, or in addition. I think I could use Restream IO to shoot the stream to Twitch and to YouTube, although that would require me to monitor multiple chats. Not entirely sure. I'm kind of pondering what the best way to go for something like this is. I think this might be enough to get this to work. User default commands, yeah. What's the name of the thing? Pipe text wrapper. Let's see how well this works. So we say run missing. Oh. Function attribute. Oh, shoot. Function attribute has no. I did the thing. Yeah. I did that in the way that's not smart. And well, the binding doesn't work. Which is, I guess the important part of that. Let's do this. And yeah, it seems like it should work. Sorry, wrong command. Shell command, adding global setting. If I push escape, it's removed. Whoops. Shoot. If I hit enter, it's removed, but executes. That still goes. So This does not quite do what we want. Those keys are still in there, right? Not the arithmetic command, not the arithmetic command, the shell command. All right. So that is potentially an issue. I might be doing something wrong, or the up and down arrows might be hard coded to not trigger key bindings. Because it's not registering any input there. So kind of technically correct. They're possible except for that. That's a bummer. That would have been very cool. That only took a couple of minutes to realize. Unless I'm doing something wrong, but that key binding definitely has the correct context, even if everything else is wrong, and it's not printing that, and it's not logging any input. Yeah. Well, let us go ahead and say that that is good. Now, one of the other things here, let me zoom that out a little bit. The way that this plugin was written by Keith, there's this to do here where this is actually executing in the main thread. So if we did something like I guess I could do it from the command palette now. Shell command. If I did sleep 20, we can see there's a bit of a, say, 20-second delay before eventually everything picks up again, because this is basically blocking the main thread. Unless it's doing something very bad and 20 seconds has elapsed already, in which case we broke it. And then all the input goes. So one of the things that this should probably do is spawn a thread to do this in the background, which is why the exec command used in build system does the exact same thing. And then it could execute all of these things. And that's why this mentions that this should probably do that. And then how do you make sure that the selections don't get modified? And I guess what you'd have to do is capture the selections so that you can grab them out and put them back later. A read-only view, the selection can change, but the text can't. And then maybe use the new annotations thing to mark. But we're gonna, I think, leave that for another stream, because we actually have hit the time limit here, and I didn't die. Can you believe it? With the level of heat that's going on in this particular place, I'll tell you what. So this has been a successful return. Except for coughing into the microphone, this has been a successful return to live streams, I think. Everything seemed to go smoothly. Sound continues to work. The fans didn't seem to cause too much of a problem. We actually got something to work after a bit of a shaky start. I always mention in videos, especially in the Plugin 101 series, that you should make your code clever or work and then make it clever or fast, because no one cares how cool your code looks if it doesn't work. And then every now and then I don't follow my own advice. Try to think ahead to, I know there's a shorter way to do this thing, like the modulo on the wrap, and then you try to sort of get there ahead of time and lose track of the small steps. But this was cool. As I said, all of the next live streams, all the way up to the end of August, are scheduled out and good to go. Topics to be determined as per usual. So, got a topic? Tweet me out, leave a comment on a video. Um, Maybe something similar to this next time. I do have a lot of plugins in the scraps repository that need to be tweaked up. Um, a lot of build things. There are some commands in there that don't have command in the name. Might be fun to go through some of those and clean them up. Um, I have currently well over 20, well, not quite 24 because I do have some other files here, but a fair number of plugins just sitting in my home directory right now, or in my user package waiting for stuff. Um, but yeah, let's get together same time next week. And yeah, perhaps I should try to get the word out a little bit more about these things. Get more people interested in stuff. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember, you can always drop comments in there and derail me as appropriate. I'm using derail in finger quotes because I very often see something shiny on my desk, like this cool fidget spinner metal cube, and completely derail myself. I think I said derail, right? Yeah. Anyway, until the next live stream, remember to subscribe to this channel to know when new streams happen. Subscribe to the other channel linked below to see weekly videos. And until the next stream, have a sublime week. I guess is probably a better way to say that.